Okay, everyone, welcome back. Tonight, I thought I would go through and do kind of a couple different things. First of all, there's some open PRs that I wanted to look at, but then there was also a question that was raised on the Gitter chat room that I thought would be a good exercise to work through. It's a common question that comes up a lot. The question pretty much comes in the basic form of, hey, I want to go through and edit, this color on this control. Great, that's a common thing to want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of the APIs inside of the material design library and WPF don't make that immediately apparent and obvious. I've gone through and done a lot of small sample apps to show off different bits and pieces of how you might go through and edit those things, which I know a lot of people have found some use with. But I thought perhaps going through the exercise of what I normally do when those questions come up, just to show people what that might look like, how to go through and find where is that template, where is that style, and what am I looking for when I'm looking to actually find exactly what do I tweak to get that thing to change, ideally without having to, do some full retemplating. So let's take a look at that real quick as soon as I get myself squared away, because I was rushing something right before this and did not actually get everything open. So there's that button. Hey, one of my windows is hanging out. Let's close that one. Okay, so let's actually get this project open. So we'll start with the material design project, and specifically I wanted to pull up the Gitter chat. So I apologize if I've been a little slow in replying to a lot of these questions. I've been having a lot of strains on my time recently, so I do try to get back to them and keep track of them. So this one down here is the one that caught my attention a little bit earlier. So wanting to change the color of a selected checkbox. And I assume that's in relationship to the fill color around the check. So let's take a look at that control and then look at how we might go about doing that. Okay, so within side of the material design project, the key thing that you want to look at when you're looking to understand anything about any of these controls is underneath the WPF project, there is a themes directory. And this is where all of the interesting XAML is located. So all of this stuff is grouped basically by a control type. So in this case, we are interested in the checkbox, so we're going to start there. And then actually, before we get too carried away, I'm just going to fire up the demo app and we'll go and take a look at what this looks like, just to make sure that we are clear what it is that we are hunting for. It's going to probably have to recompile since I cleaned out a lot of my NuGet package directories earlier. And show up now. And of course, I put it on the wrong monitor. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to go check, or is it fields? Where are the... Nope, that's not one of them. Yeah, so these little guys here. So if I do, let's see, get that open and... Nope, not zoom. I want zoom it. Those are not the same application. So if we dive in here, this guy right here, that's what we're after. So that little purple is what we're looking for. Okay, so down inside of here, the next question should be, there's a ton of styles in here. And so the question should be, which style do I want to actually look at and kind of start working my way through first? And the easiest option is, if you're directly setting a style, the name that you're using in that static resource should line up with this style keys. But if you aren't setting one, the question should be, what is the default? And so to get that information, what you want to do is you want to come down to the material design theme defaults. And this is specific for all of the cases where you aren't explicitly setting a style. So inside of WPF, there are implicit styles, meaning styles that don't have an X key set on them. So there's no explicit key there. So what WPF ends up doing is looking at the control type and going, okay, what is the appropriate style for this? So all the styles without an X key implicitly have an X key of target type, which is great. It allows you to style out everything quick and easy. So these are all of the defaults. And you'll note this is the resource dictionary that you have in your app.xaml. It's the one that's required to plug in to effectively get the theming plugged in. Because what this does is it sets up styles and all of the built-in controls for you. So in our case, what we're interested in is this checkbox. And so specifically what we want to see is, okay, what is the default for a checkbox, which is the material design checkbox. Great. So we'll jump over here. And this is where we find ourselves in here. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to collapse the resources because those don't really matter. And what we are looking to find is what is making that, in our case, purple, but primary color. So I know because of the theming that has been set that the theme on this app, the primary color is this purple, and this lines up. So I'm looking for something with the word primary right in the middle of it. And right out the gate, the two that I notice right away are the background and the border brush that immediately go through and set those up. And so what I'm interested in looking at is probably background and looking at where this background property gets used. So the root level grid around the top of the control template is clearly set to transparent. Great, fine. That's not overly relevant to us. And down inside of here, there's a content presenter, which inside of a checkbox, I just know from past experience that this is the portion of the checkbox where the text or other content can go. Worth noting, checkboxes don't have to contain text. This is an arbitrary content presenter, so you can put whatever you want in there. You could put a button inside of a checkbox as content. That would be weird, but you can do it. So what we are looking for is something in this vicinity that would indicate the background color that gets applied, specifically when this thing is checked. So is checked true, and we can look and see what is going on here. So when is checked goes to true, I can see two things happen. One, the data property of this graphic, which if we go up here, graphic is going to be this path variable here. It gets set to this path variable, which I'm just going to assume is probably the appropriate values for the check. But then more importantly, it sets this fill color here. And you'll note that this fill property looks for it's using a relative binding up to the background property on the parent. So if I was a guessing man, let's go up to the demo app and just try this real quick. So what page was I on? Fields, it looks like. So if we come down here to fields, and I'm just going to go find one of my checkboxes. Checkbox. This one looks great. If I go through and set background, and I usually try to pick large, bright, ugly colors that are hard to miss, so fuchsia. And we are looking to see, do we see fuchsia? I do not see it. So where rich text box is read only. This guy here does not appear to have background being set. Interesting. That's not a good sign. I'm going to restart this app just real quick to make sure that this isn't a hot reload issue. And then this question may end up being a bug. That would be... Oh, nope, there it is. The problem is purple and fuchsia are very, very similar. So, just a hot reload issue. Cool. So, I think what we're going to do is we're going to come back over here. And we'll just type in a quick reply to this guy. So, we'll start a thread. Control it by setting the background property on the checkbox. Boom. So hopefully people find that. I think that's probably the most common type of question that I get asked, or that I should say comes up, is how do I set different colors? Not all of them are that easy. Sometimes it involves something a little more complex. When in doubt, there is I'll just show this off. Apparently I don't have GitHub open. That's a mistake. Always have GitHub open. So if I just look for my examples, so if anyone's interested, and there's a link to this from the main projects README as well. I have a whole bunch of samples, and specifically if we just search for ones that are .color, you will find a whole bunch of... Oh, it drops the dot. How rude. Let's see, buttons. Nope. I've got different ones that I've plugged in here specifically around changing different colors because certain controls are not easy. That's something we will talk about later because I would like to try and address that. Not in this release. Current focus is get the current release out the door because there is more than enough in there to warrant a full-fledged release. So, let's start with this. So, so once again, Robert Snipe has been hard at work at different controls. So this PR has changed a little bit. There was a little bit of feedback going back and forth. So I wanted to get this reviewed. And okay, so if people are interested, here is the PR link, but it is 2382 as well. The interesting part here, so for people who don't remember all the way back, there was a, and I think if I've got the, oh, did I close the demo app? I closed the demo app. I can show off his other ones real quick because I kind of think they look cool. I think they look really cool under the dark theme specifically. Was it buttons? Shoot, what was the last control? More importantly, am I on the latest? No, I am off over here. I am off over here. There are some controls that got added specifically for buttons that are a paper variant. And in this case, paper is in reference to a material design brush. And so what this PR aims to do is to do that same thing with some of the group boxes. Now, these extra color variants aren't necessarily in the spec, but the material design spec is kind of loose. It's designed very intentionally to be expandable. It tries to put up guide rails and says, please stay within these guide rails, but within that, there's a lot of freedom, especially inside of a library like this where we're working in WPF, because even though they outline a lot of common controls, there's built-in WPF controls that have no direct equivalent out to the material design controls. And then there's material design controls that don't have built-in WPF support, so they've had to be built out. So just with those kind of things in mind, this here is the group box and trying to figure out what to do with a paper variant. You could almost think of it as a minimalist look and feel to it. So if you look at all of the various online material design theming implementations, some of them have a really nice minimalist feel to it. And this paper variant, in my perspective, really kind of captures that minimalist feel of, I don't want my color to get in the way. I want it to accent and highlight my content, and then I want it to just kind of float into the background. Where something like the accent header, which is what we've had previously, doesn't do it. To be clear, the paper variants that were in the initial rev of this PR are these four here. So if that's not obvious. Okay, so let's see, because I saw he put in some more work on this. Let's see. So taking it a little further by replacing the line with a border. Okay, cool. It was a toss-up between nesting the header border or not within the outer border. I totally get you. I went and nested. I think it gives more options of what you can do. I've added a paper dark color to the base themes. I'm not 100% sure on this. I like it in principle, but not sure if there's another way to achieve this same thing. Different shade in both the light and the dark. Good question. I also added a corner radius to header and main border. There is a slight niggle. I don't know what niggle is. Is that a real word, or am I just... Huh. I learned a new word. Niggle. Slight but persistent annoyance. If you set the outer corner radius and not the header to match, at least the top half. Oh, I see. So with these corner radiuses, yeah, I could see that. That could very easily bite you. Because by doing this, we now effectively have 6 corner radiuses, which is a little weird. It's a little weird. Simply because a corner radius... so a corner radius inside of WPF... That's actually... that's not the WPF one. Is this the WPF one? System Windows. Sure, this will work. So inside the corner radius is things like this guy here. But you'll note, just like a thickness, a corner radius can accept more than one value. So it's not shown in their example here, but you could specify a single value, which means apply equally to all, or you could individually specify all 4 values for your corner radius. So you could also do top left, top right, bottom left, if you wanted to have something that was non-uniform. So, you know, square corners and maybe just round the top or similar. I think that actually shows up this one down here. So you can see this guy, this top border that's here, there's a corner radius around the top one, but not one on the bottom. And I believe the niggle that he's referring to is because there's both a border going around the outside and a border going around the header. If you don't set these top corner radiuses to be equal, you end up with one of the borders with a nice rounded corner and one of them with, say, a straight corner, and you see both because they're both exposed. So there is that. I had to play with using a visual brush to force the clip inner, but not sure it's really worth adding the bloat. Yeah, there's a slight different, but not the header to match. Yeah, I can see that. Possible solution, this would go on the outer border. Interesting. Okay, so very, very interesting. But what would be cool is to open up the theming so that's more extendable. Instead of light dark being binary, you might want to have light dark blue. Yes, yes, yes. This is actually, so one of the things that I want to actually go through and handle is right now we have some nice automatic theming between light and dark, and that's great. The problem is those are really the only 2 things that the material design spec covers. Light theme, dark theme. Why would you need more than that? Whereas inside of Windows, let me pull this open. There is a option here to not just be light and dark. There's more options. Where are they? Hello. My Windows is losing its mind. Oh. That was too many clicks. That was too many clicks. Okay, so let's go back and try that again. Give me my theme settings back. This is probably it. So, with inside of Windows, in addition to just your light and dark theme, you can actually go to high contrast as well, which especially for people who really need a lot more than just what a basic dark theme is. Dark theme is usually popular because it's supposed to be easier on your eyes. It makes things pop a little bit. There's definitely the running joke of developers who always like to use dark theme. But with high contrast, it's a little bit less about just the look good and oftentimes more about the accessibility to make things easier for people who really need that high contrast. The material design spec does not cover any of that. It ultimately leaves that kind of in your hands. Now, with something like WhenUI Theming. So, how about UWP theme high contrast? There is high contrast themes. So inside of UWP applications, and ultimately what comes with WhenUI as well, is you end up with something more like this, which I would love to start moving the library a little bit more in this direction. So rather than just having light, dark be very binary, as Robert pointed out in his pull request, let it be more extendable. Be able to go between that, maybe a default and then a light and then a high contrast. That way there is options available so that things can go through. So I don't know if this is necessarily the structure or how I want to try and do that. Feedback definitely welcome. I don't think I can do it without making a major breaking change, so it's probably going to be in like the 5.0 version time frame, which could be a little bit before it gets in. But I do want to look at making this a lot more extensible. There is some work that MaApps is doing that's interesting in this space because they've tried to work in their theming to make it more extensible as well. So I wanted to take a good look through and make sure I understand what they're doing before making a decision on how that goes. If there's any other, I guess, theming apps that or libraries that you think have done well, I would love to hear about them, because right now the MaApps one is the only one I'm aware of that does a pretty good job. I know somebody like Telerik, they have like a bunch of built-in themes, but it's not what we're going for. We're looking for something that is an extendable theming mechanism, not just take ours and replace brushes if you want. That's not the extensibility level we're looking at. We're looking to be able to add additional brushes without necessarily it being a breaking change all the way back, because that's one of the hard parts. One of my other goals is to try to keep the theming as absolutely dirt simple as possible, because most of the time people don't care. They want to drop in, set their color theme, and just have it work for them. Especially in my apps, that's what I tend to do a lot of the time. Is I just want to drop in, flip a few buttons for a primary and a secondary, and move on and not stress about it. If I need to override something a little bit later, I'll deal with it then. I don't want to fight it the whole time. So I want both the power and the simplicity. And that's a hard thing to do and come up with a clean API. So all that because of a simple comment. So yes, taking this one stage further. My custom theme, which implements iTheme or base theme, and then the theming system would be able to handle getting all of the extended color properties and applying them. Just glancing over it all, I don't quite understand why iTheme and base theme exist together. Is base theme the old version? It might be removed at some stage. If it is in the way. Anyway, this is easy to do. So, okay, because this is a good question. And this, there's no, grumble. Okay. At one point in time, I tried to cover this a little bit in the wiki. So there are a couple things worth noting here. And the names probably could use some work. So with the way the brushes are set up, there are sort of two tiers. You've got your light theme and your dark theme brushes, which basically exist on a grayscale level. They aren't grayscale brushes, but that's the idea. One's on the lighter side of the spectrum, one's on the darker side of the spectrum. And then there's and this probably would have been better as color theme, which consists of both a base theme as well as a primary and a secondary color. So that is the ultimate extension. And as Robert's accurately pointing out, it's kind of a confusing. And the only reason it exists this way is because you might pair the light theme with some of the colors, or you might pair the dark theme with some of those colors. And ultimately, the primary and secondary color aren't dependent upon the light or the dark theme. You could have the same color blue with both light and dark. You're totally fine. And all that gets changed out is sort of those base brushes. That's the intent, and that is a little bit reminiscent of things being reflected in the resource dictionary land, because there's multiple ways to control your styles. So if we jump over by means of an example. So, for example, on the demo app, this is currently the simple mode of doing theming. When you drop in here, if you want to include material design in your project, you drop in a bundled theme. This color adjust is optional. You don't need that. You just set a base theme, a primary, and a secondary. And if you just want to have it inherit, you can even skip on some of this too. The color adjustment is just, do I want my colors to actively maintain a contrast ratio for me, or do I want to be in control of them? Because there's kind of two different camps. One camp says no, I'm theming this, hands off, and the other camp says I'm lazy, do it for me. This is the I'm lazy, do it for me. I want to make sure that my foreground and background colors maintain a minimum aspect ratio to keep things legible. If that color adjustment is getting in the way, by all means, turn it off. But just know that you're going to be in charge of making sure that that contrast ratio is acceptable the whole way through. What is going on with... There is something up with my machine, and I do not know what it is. Just going to check my task manager real quick and see what is... Nothing overly shocking and out of the ordinary, aside from the fact that my malware service is going crazy, and apparently Slack is running. So let's go ahead and just shut some of that on down. Perfect. Okay, take back some of my CPU slack. Thank you very much. So, with that said, that's the explanation that probably needs to make it into this PR. And there's a little bit more here. So, it's a little hard to just make changes that work in C# land, because I do want to maintain the options of, if you'd rather set your colors with the resource dictionary approach, I want that to work as well. Great. I don't know how many people are using this beyond legacy reasons. I didn't want to break it, so I didn't touch it. And I made sure it worked both ways. So that is the intent. Okay, so let's go back here and take a look at this. Why does it keep scrolling me to the top? A couple more styles. Oh, man. So there are a lot in here. Wait. Oh, this is a motion GIF. There, back that out a little bit. So, paper variant. This is the one that was being nicknamed Tron. You can read the full chat. Header border alt. Paper border, no shadow. Dark header, primary foreground. Corner radius, header corner radius. Okay, so it seems like to do a proper review on this, I'm going to stash that for a moment. Come back to it in a minute. I want to jump over to this. Let's see. Check out. Let's go ahead and check out this branch and take a look at it. So specifically, now that I'm on that branch, I'm just going to recompile and we'll take a quick look and see. The nice part is the show me the XAML is set up. And I can tell that he left it in from the little icons at the bottom, which is awesome. So for those people who haven't seen it, inside of the demo app, anywhere you see this kind of little XAML symbol means you can click on it to just get the code that you need. It works most of the way. It will show you the exact XAML for that control. Oh, boo! He must not have checked in his demo app changes. Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping to go and look at all of these. Just make sure I'm not missing something. Demo app shows did not rebuild. I'm thinking it got a little confused when I switched branches out from under it. I am on that branch, right? Yes. Yeah, because there should be more in the group boxes. You'll note the header Tron one is still in there as well. Which, for those people who are unfamiliar with it, Tron is a movie reference. So let's take a look and let's see here what is going on. Okay, am I stupid? Because the edits on Git show groupboxes.xaml. This guy, I am on this branch. I'm going to close and relaunch Visual Studio because this code is not updating to reflect the changes on disk. I'm wondering maybe a VS 2022 thing? So I am, if you didn't notice, I am running Visual Studio 2022 with pretty much all the preview features turned on. So chance of failure, high. But it's got so much cool stuff, it was hard for me to pass up. So I there, see, now Tron shows up when we search it. That's what we're going for. If you haven't checked out VS 2022, I would definitely encourage you to give it a shot. It is by far worth it in my opinion. I've actually been using it in my day job because it's not perfectly stable, but the performance enhancements to it, in my opinion, offset the few times where I have to just shut it down and restart it. So I think I run a lot faster in it than without it. So that is my perspective. The one thing you do need to be careful of is if you go through and make a make any edits to the solution itself, you may not want to check in your solution file change. It can still open older solutions, but the moment you like add a new project or add a solution level item and it has to touch that .sln folder, it's going to update the version in your SLN file. You probably don't want to check that into your source control unless your entire team is running VS 2022. So throw that out there. Other than that, have at it. It's great. Oh, hang on. Maybe it was there this whole time and I was just too stupid to see it. It's hiding behind an expander. Ahaha. I want to change the style of this expander because if I can't see it, now admittedly I'm blind. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. So corner radius plus border. So group box corner radius, header corner radius. And so you'll note this is the corner radius around the outside. And I actually kind of want to suggest something crazy. We could roll our own group box radius and make it be like corner radius, but with 6 values. Which could be rather interesting. It would eliminate because effectively what you have right here is 8 values, but you can't use all 8. You can only use 6 of them. And the reason I say that is because the top left and top right of both the corner radius and the header corner radius are affecting the same area. So you can't use them with different values. Those two need to match. So if we rolled our own, we could make it have 6 values and then let it adjust accordingly. Header border brush. foreground. See, I don't know if some of these... Some of these, I don't know if this is necessary, simply because it could be solved with things that affect the content are usually less valuable, simply because you can replace this content with anything you want. Groupbox header is the same idea. Is, I believe, and we'll double check it here in a minute, is it's just a content presenter inside the template, which means content presenters accept arbitrary content. You can put a group box inside a group box if you want, or a group box inside of another group box header. Again, would be weird, but you could do it. Sorry, I'm just looking at this. The most important thing with any new changes is, what does the API look like, to try and make things feel nice. See, and I'm wondering if the same thing could go for the thickness. The only reason I'm not, the only thing that the attached property I'm not sure I like is the header foreground, which I think that's new. I just wonder if that, man. I do wonder if we should separate out, because there is a weird thing with header border and border. So what is this one doing? Yeah, because Groupbox itself already has a border. I almost want to separate this line here and leave the rest of it the same. I kind of like that. Okay, so let's look at some code. Let's look at some code. That's enough playing with the actual work. Let's go and see some of this. So I do not care about the demo. That looks fine. Demo app changes I review with a lot less scrutiny, mostly just making sure that they work and run, because demo app changes, if it works and runs, it's serving its purpose. Library code, a little bit more scrutiny. It needs it. Okay, so Groupbox Assist is brand new. So everything in Groupbox Assist is new. So there's the corner radius, header corner radius. These are the ones that get a little weird. Both of those guys are using the same default. That should be fine. Static read only, great. It could theoretically even be public if somebody wanted access to it for their own properties or similar, but whatever. It's not a big deal. Let's see, header border brush. Header border thickness. So here's what I'm thinking. Just initial gut reaction on this API. If we left... So let's see, how many of these are just related to that? So header foreground, background, border, border thickness, border brush, corner radius. So the only one that is an addition to the group box itself that's not tied to the header is the corner radius around there. I think what I want to do is I want to keep this and do a slight rename on some of these. Let me think about that for a minute. Specifically, rather than calling this header, rename it more like header separator, header line, See, I don't know if there's even a, let me look real quick. Material design components. I don't know if the group box is even a built-in one. Let's see, banners, buttons, dividers might be interesting to look at. Cards might be interesting to look at. Yeah, this is one of those areas that, because this is a WPF control, we kind of need to do something with it. But it's also something that isn't overly clear of how it should look or work, because this is very much a WPF-y control, not a material design-y control. We're trying to make something that's not material design look material designy. So what the right answer should be is a little bit to be determined. So let's look at dividers. What are the things here? So middle divider. I almost inset dividers. Yeah, so there's not a great option here. Okay, let's carry on. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my head, but that's an idea I want to come back to on this. So I'm just gonna leave that sitting there. I'll collapse it. Don't mark it as viewed. Okay, the theming stuff. Material design, paper dark. So I'm a little interested in seeing is this brush something that overlaps? Because I'm trying to see if we need this value or if this is just interesting. So it's definitely a different brush. 24. Paper dark. The other thing I'm not... Oh, there it is. There's the set. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that. I'm only holding my breath a little bit because theming changes like that, even though these are additions, open up for a lot of breakage possibilities. Yeah, think about that. Think about that for a minute. Okay, so material design paper group box. So sets up with a bunch of defaults, because I'm guessing all of these... Oh, so it is just one style. Collapse that for a minute. So let's take a look at this. So there's not a lot here. It's a fairly small template. Opacity mask. Why are we... Actual width, shadow depth. Oh, doing that to support the shadow edges. Got it. Got it. For those people unfamiliar with it, this is to support some shadow assist ones that were largely done for the color zone, because occasionally you only want your shadow to fall onto one edge. So you can imagine specifically with like the drawer controls, oftentimes you may only want to cast the shadow one direction to indicate something sitting on top, but maybe not in another direction. Because you want two things to look as though they're at the same level, even if, you know, the Z order is different. So we allow you to go through and kill some which edges the shadow will fall on. Okay, so there's the border. So where does the... Yeah, so this is being passed through here, but I don't think this is needed. I don't think this is needed, because if you want to control the foreground explicitly, you can set it. It's mildly more convenient. It's mildly more convenient and slightly more discoverable. I don't know if it's worth the overhead of another attached property. Because the one thing I'm trying to avoid is having too many attached properties, because they aren't necessarily easy to discover. Within this library, we've tried to make the naming scheme control name with assist as the suffix, just as a way of finding them. So there's that. But things like exposing template-related properties, via an attached property is very convenient. The only thing that gets a little weird is we now have groupbox assist attached properties that aren't being applied to the other groupbox styles. So for example, if I were to set some of the other ones up on these guys, they're going to have no effect, which is fine. That's not a breaking change, but it is one of the things I try to keep in mind with an attached property, because if it's not going to be applied to everything, it can end up being a bit of a problem. So I think I would want to go through and look at changing some of this. So how much of this is an overlap? So there's a change from the header being a color zone. Because the other one uses a color zone at the top. Expand that out a little more. Which is interesting. I do... It's interesting because in a lot of these cases, this is killing off the color zone in favor of the other one. Is that bad? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Oh, and there's another one up here, a card group box. So let's see, we've got... So these are the group boxes up here with the color zone, and then a card group box, which is kind of an old... This one almost needs to go away and die, because this is one that used to be popular with some of the other the old material design stuff. What I might do is I've started thinking about demoting some of the styles that I want to get rid of into their own resource dictionaries that aren't automatically included. That way, if people want them for backwards compatibility, they can just pull in the resource dictionary and it's back to the way it was. Or they can, if they want to stick with just the new stuff, ignore it. The defaults will handle it. You'll be fine. So there is a bit of that. I was contemplating doing that for the 5.0 release. The other thing I was considering doing is something similar for the brush rename, because I've talked about on this stream before about wanting to change up the names of these brushes to be a little bit more obvious and discoverable, because to some degree this paper name, though it's descriptive now, is not easy to remember. And even the material design theming has kind of gone away from some of these names in favor of ones that are a little bit more intuitive. And so I'd like to ingest those naming changes, but to do that is basically going to be a breaking change. But what we can do is do it before the 5.0 release and just support both names for a while. That way it gives people an opportunity to migrate without it just being, a straight cutoff and, oh, you got to rename all your stuff immediately. So we can have a release or two with them just being obsolete and then warn people that, hey, this is coming. You might want to start checking your stuff. Here's the migration path. Have at it. Because I do try to make sure that if there's just a simple rename, that's covered in the release notes, so people can just do basically blind find replaces. Okay, so I like this mostly. Yeah, so I think rather than putting... I think most of my comments don't need to be necessarily on code because he's a contributor that's done quite a bit of work. He's fairly familiar with all this stuff. So let's see. They look great. Let's see. To start with your question on theming. The theming API has been a, let's see, long-running goal, but it's not easy to always get perfect. The idea with the base themes, light, dark, is that they would get paired with a color theme in retrospect. Let's see. So iTheme, probably a bad name in retrospect, which it kind of is. It doesn't really communicate what it's supposed to be. As the old saying goes, there are only two things that are hard in computer science: cache invalidation, naming things, and off by one errors. And I'm sure all one of you just chuckled. Okay, fine. I'll chuckle for myself because that's the way it'll go. Have been looking at options to try and make this more expandable, especially to try accommodate the Windows high contrast themes. That would, I would really like to do anything that we can do to expand accessibility. Only makes the library easier for people to use, and hopefully, with most of the accessibility stuff that I put in, I try to make it on by default where possible, unless it's going to be potentially detrimental. Like that automatic color adjust, it's off by default because there's a lot of people who are like, no, I have spent a long time picking out the perfect colors. Don't tweak them for me. Okay, I get it. So, opt-in feature, but it's there to hopefully improve accessibility. And I often leave it on all of my apps because, unlike what people may think, I am not an overly picky designer. And I would rather my colors fluctuate a little bit, especially if you allow users to pick their own colors. You might want to turn it off if they're going to spend the time doing it. But maybe you just want to do like an auto dark, auto light theme, and you don't want to worry about going through and checking all of your colors to make sure they've got the right contrast. Just turn the automatic color adjust on. It'll work great. It does it for you. And it does a pretty good job. Intent there. Better APIs. Okay, so the one thing I did not see here that I wanted to go back and look at is I did not see where this paper dark gets picked up. Is it only in like the demo? Is it only here? Interesting. Paper dark. So what does that do on light theme? I'm now interested. Which one is the paper dark? Let's see. Dark header and primary foreground. So that one uses it. Subtle uses it. Let's see. Subtle was the one that had. Let's see. So it's around there. Oh, interesting. Man, I'm a little torn on this. A little torn. Because it's a border brush and it's only currently used in the demo app. Man. Which means, in theory, people could code it in themselves. It doesn't have to live as a theme brush. Grumble, 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 grumble. I think I prefer to not put it in then yet. Yeah, if that's the only place it's used. Yeah, I think of it. In line with the okay, so I don't want to say most because I don't actually know how many of them don't line up. I just want to review them all and change anything that's out of the way. Okay. So let's see. I think for now, let's omit the. What was the name of it, right? I just need to leave a. Take this over off to the side. That way I don't need to keep scrolling back and forth on this. Actually, I suppose I can leave it. Here. Dock. Docking is cool. So one thing that can be done, and I don't know if this is obvious to a lot of people, is I plugged this in here because we actually, with the latest changes that we made, Draggables is looking for an old theme brush that got deprecated and then removed in the 4X release, specifically the secondary accent brush. The problem is if you're using it, there's not a clean way to say, hang on, that's a theme brush I'm using, I want it. And more importantly, it's not a brush that has a fixed color. It's something that changes when the theme changes. Well, inside of the MyApp draggable one, what I ended up doing is going through and saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put in an example of using our theme manager, which is a very simple class whose purpose in life is to give you injection points for when theming stuff happens. Most notably, theme changed. So when the theme changes, this allows you to go through and say, I'd like to change some stuff. And in fact, I might even go as far as to change. This probably should be a little different. This should probably be e.resource dictionary. Now, in this particular instance, because this is registered on app, it's going to be the same one. But in theory, if somebody were to copy this into their own, I'd like this to be as robust as possible. So something like this. But it means you have a callback where you can actually go through and change and set things. It also allows for some very, very simple injection. Now, you can also go through and set this just because of the way this bundled theme works. It actually is going to trigger a theme changed event on startup. So just be aware of that. If you're using some of these built-in ways of doing it, that theme change will trigger right away. Now, if you aren't using this and you're using the resource dictionary XML-based approach, there will not be a theme change on startup. So slight behavior difference. So if you're relying on this on startup, just be aware that you need to be using one of the built-in resource dictionaries that actually calls into the theming API in order to make that happen. If you just do the resource dictionary, there's no injection point that this library can get its hands on, and so it is up to you to make it so. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Oh, at some point I really want to go back to show me the XAML. Source generators are awesome, and maybe we'll go through and do that. So if people would like to see that, drop me a link or mention down in the comments. I've been doing a lot of source generator work, so if that's interesting to people, let me know. We'll see how it goes. I'm still somewhat new at it. Obviously, it's a new feature. Everyone's kind of new at it. But it is really awesome, the stuff you can do. No more reflection overhead. Or at least you can choose to eat the reflection overhead at compile time rather than runtime, which is awesome. And it's not really reflection. It's better reflection. Okay. So rather I would set it up. Let's see. Up the theme manager and inject it on the theme changed event. I think what we're going to do is let's just grab just slap that guy in there. Boom, and then I'm going to do a ... to indicate there's some separation there, blah, blah, blah. And then does this thing have a... let's see, so he's going to want to know if it's a light or a dark theme. If new theme, let's see. So let's see. So this is ultimately, let's see, format this back so I can see what I'm doing. So if e.new theme base theme equals base theme light, do one thing. So let's see, solid color brush. Paper dark. And this is going to be boom. Paper dark. So if it is a light, if the new theme is light, we want to grab our light brush value. So let's go and grab it. Let's see, that's dark, group box, light. Let's see, paper dark, gets new solid color brush, color from ARGB, paste. So it's going to be 0x, comma 0x, comma 0x, comma 0x. Let's see, grab this, else, paste it there, and then we just need the dark value, which was above. So 24, 24, 24. So we're going to go 24, 24, 24. Great. And actually, we can simplify that down. Sure, conditional expression. So we'll copy this code in just to make it a little bit easier. One thing that I have found is really useful to learn, if you're not familiar with how to do markdown formatting for GitHub or similar, it is a worthwhile thing to learn. It's not overly complex. One of the key things for code blocks is doing 3 of these backticks, and then just putting all of your code inside of it, and then 3 backticks closes the code block. And what you end up with is something that looks any day now, GitHub. There we go. You end up with something that looks like this. The way I get the syntax highlighting there, because if you just do it like that and leave this off, demonstration, it just tells GitHub, hey, this is a code block, hands off, no fancy formatting, very literal, which is great for, generic stuff. But for pretty much any modern programming language, you can put the programming language name here, and GitHub will attempt to format with reasonable syntax highlighting with that language spec in there. Now, obviously, new language features, sometimes it gets confused. It's a best guess formatting, but it's pretty good. I find this to be very helpful, especially when trying to communicate with people code, because sometimes just showing code is easiest. This is effectively the currently one of the few theming extension points, but it is not obvious. There is also an example in the repo here. Boom. And so we will grab that and include it as well, because I think that's important to include. So let's just grab that real quick. Let's see, main demo. That's the UWP one. This is the one we want. I'm just going to include that link there. Perfect. Okay, so let's carry on now. 2 dot. So that'll clean up all of those. Don't need to see that again. 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 I want to keep that. Don't need to see that. Okay, so now we're down to just template and assist calls. In terms of the, was it niggle? Was that the word, my new word? Niggle, yeah. Thanks for teaching me a new word. let's see, more complex. Is not let's see. So I think in terms of what to do here, I think the cleanest thing would be is to separate the border of the group box, or at least the concept of the border from the group box, from the separator between the header and the content. That's the phrase I want to learn. If we separate the concepts of the border around the group box from the header, and instead just end with group box border, end with stuff related to the group boxes border, stuff related to the so let's see, this would eliminate the confusion with the top corner radius. It would then only exist for the group box itself. The only thing that gets weird, I am realizing something. This style would not be possible. That style there would not be possible. Or would it? Would it? I think it would be. Okay, let's try this. I want to make header border look like header corner radius. Let's try this. I think we can get away with this. Close that for a moment. Let's see if we can do this. So, and I think that the kicker here is the fact that header is a content. So, yeah, I think we can do this. Header border. Okay, so I want this guy to look like the other one. So what we do is we do group box header, and then I do a border. So we're going to drop this, and I do text block text header border. So that gets me close. It's obviously not going to be themed. I'm going to need something like border thickness and corner radius and whatnot all set. But I think we can achieve this look. I'm going to move you to the side so real quick. So border thickness 1, corner radius, I don't know what it's set to. We're going to start with 4. Let's grab this guy here and bring it down. Let's take a look at where we're at. see, I want to turn this guy off. My content. Put something in there to make sure that okay, so it is in there. I'm sorry, what? Border brush, and again, when in doubt, you pick an ugly color so that it stands out. Okay, so what would allow me to back that up? I want to look at this. This sort of comes into play with the shadow as well. But I think we can still achieve that. Okay, so let's look at header corner radius. Let's see. Actually, I don't need to scroll down to it. What am I doing? I've got show me the XAML. I turn this on. Corner radius. So it is 4. Okay, so what I want to see though is what is the template that makes this not possible, or at least difficult. So we want to go down here. So we are here. So the padding is what's doing it, and I think that's where it's going to bite me, because I'm going to need to... Okay, so this guy here needs to set padding to 0, which is going to be a problem for the content then as well, which is fine. But then we come up here, padding of 9. So we do padding of 9, and then on the content we go padding of 9. Bring that sucker in, and then what is setting that? Let's see. This guy here is being controlled by header border thickness. So I want to turn you off. So header border thickness 0. That should get me darn close. Aside from that color difference, and this corner looks pretty close too. I'm just noting there, I don't know if that's coming through very clear. There's some slightly darker pixels around the outside from the shadow, but that is expected. Oh boy, you gotta turn your mouse sensitivity down when you're zoomed in this much. But same thing here. Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, I think that works. I don't think and then to get the border style, the brush there, what is the default brush for that guy? I think it's mid. Yeah, so it's dynamic resource primary hue mid. So rather than fuchsia, we go primary hue mid. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I kind of like it. That and that, pretty much identical. So, given that, and that's usually the way I handle when people ask about groupbox header color of, hey, I wanna change just the content of my header. It's like, okay, the header's arbitrary content. Slap your own text block in there and go to town. So I think let's comment on that. And I think actually before we get to my previous number 2, this can be a 3. Let's see, 2. I think we can also omit, let's see, group box assist. Let's see, let's just go grab the name. Group box assist. Header foreground. Man, now I'm on the fence. Should there be an attached property to do it? So let's talk this through. So on one hand, having the attached property is certainly easier to set. It's mildly more discoverable. And it's definitely not going to break anything. Maybe those are good additions. I think I'm talking myself back out of it. Maybe those are good additions. Because they certainly smooth over some rough edges that are a little bit more problematic. Let's see. I think it would be good to evaluate which of the group box assist attached properties can be reasonably applied to the other group box styles. Enable those as well, because I do think having those available is useful. It is confusing when people set an attached property and it does nothing. So I've been trying to avoid attached properties that are hyper specific to one template. Sometimes it's unavoidable. You just can't get away from it. You need to expose something. It only makes sense in one context. Sure. I've just been trying to avoid it as the go-to option if it doesn't work everywhere, because it does get a little weird. Okay. Anyway, given that, let's see, the header foreground and background flip-flopped on, since it is technically possible to set arbitrary content into the group boxes header to manually control these, though it is certainly much more work than a couple property setters. For example, this effectively converts the effectively, as you can tell, my spelling is not great. Converts the, let's go over here. The header border sample into the header corner radius sample. Header corner sample. So we'll just share that, put that in, because I'm not going to check this in since this is his branch. in general, unless somebody requests it, I try not to muck with people's branches too much. Despite so unless you check it's worth knowing this on GitHub by default, unless you uncheck the box when you make a pull request, people with push permissions to the fork that you're pull requesting back into can push back into your branch. So it can be quite helpful at times to have that enabled, so that then there can be some collaboration there. I try to be respectful and not necessarily just blindly push into people's branches too much. I try a little bit. We could consider doing something a bit more complex. Of changing up the let's see here. Changing up the types of the exposed properties for the corner radius and thickness, since these appear to be the ones that overlap and look odd when set to different values. And even with the color brushes, you can kind of get into a similar situation where you get bit a little bit with transparent brushes of, hey, I set this one and it's, fuchsia with, 50% opacity, but behind it is a blue brush and now my fuchsia looks funny on part of it. It's like, oh, yeah, it's transparent. Don't do that. The brush colors, if now with material design, they don't recommend using opacity, so there's that. And I've been slowly trying to kill off because opacity has bitten us in a number of areas when toggling between light and dark theme. Several brushes were at one point in time using opacity to get a nice gray tone, but that only worked when they were over a white background. And so you ended up running into this weird situation where when I went to dark theme, things got a little bit harder to see. You kind of had to squint at them a little more. And that was that opacity of, now rather than being contrasted with a white, they were contrasted with a dark color, and that wasn't merging well, so to speak. So I've tried to go through and flatten those brushes down, killing off the alpha portion, and just flattening it onto what would be a white background and applying the resulting color there. That way it looks the same regardless of whether you're in light or dark, rather than being dependent on the background. And fits a little bit better with this. For things like the, so how about for corner radius, we could declare our own type similar to corner radius, where it accepts either a single universal value for values for the corners, or 6 values for the corners plus the header bottom corners. Allow a lot of freedom in specifying them, but it would mean writing a custom type along with a type converter, let's see, to parse the XAML string into the new custom type. And we can go and get a sample of this. So for people who have never seen this before, let's go. So I think we can actually see it here. Corner radius. Is it here? Yeah. Yeah. So this is ultimately how it works. So when working inside of WPF, XAML is inherently strings. Everything's a string. So even though corner radius is this struct that has 4 values, inside of the XAML, you just either type in, a single number or you type in 4 numbers and it just figures it out. And the way it figures it out is with this converter. And this converter, it knows to use because it's decorated on top of the type. So there's a type converter for corner radius. And if we go here, you can see that it's got a can convert from, can convert to, convert from, and it goes through and starts parsing these things apart to figure out, okay, how is this going to work? So you can see if the source is a string, from string, otherwise convert it to a double, and away we go. And so it gets rather complicated in here as far as what it's going to do and breaking off each little bit of the list in order to go through and find it. Let's see. So let's leave some links. Let's leave some links. If you are unfamiliar with this, you can see how it works by looking at the existing corner radius code. Let's see. And it's type converter. So we're gonna grab this guy. Let's see. Oh, that one was already the type converter. So I would like to change this one to be the corner radius line. Boom. Basically on the custom type, you declare a type converter attribute specifying the converter you want it to use to parse the strings from the XAML. From there, you can implement whatever logic you want in the custom type converter class. Similar could be done with the header separator thickness as well to make it a all said, it a lot of complexity for only a small gain. So because this is one of those, I think I like the idea, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So I think we're just going to leave it at that and look for feedback. I imagine Robert's done a ton of work on this, and I sort of expect that he's probably put in at least as much thought onto this as I have, if not a lot more. Okay, were there any other feedback bits that I had? I think that was it. I mean, overall, this is a really clean work. Yeah, this is very clean work. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'm just trying to look it over and make sure there's nothing else that I missed. I think that's it. Cool. Okay, well, I realized that was only a small amount of stuff, but I think I may wrap up a little early for tonight. I have had a few nights of sick children and not much sleep. So, wait, where did my comment go? Oh, wait, wrong window. Didn't lose it. So I think I may wrap up here for the night and then circle back on more stuff again next time. I did spend a little bit of time poking at the one of the last outstanding bugs here to try and get this addressed, and got annoyed and closed my computer lid. So, but I was also trying to code this at like midnight. So, lesson learned. I can't do complicated stuff in XAML at midnight. So, don't try. Or at least not without the appropriate amount of Mountain Dew. So I think with that, I'm going to tell everybody thank you very much. Robert, if you're watching this, great work. I really appreciate all of the effort that you've been putting in on this library. It is not going unnoticed. So with that, happy coding. See everyone next time.